welcome to the House of ZK Radio, which is a focused podcast and media channel exploring everything ZK, zero knowledge. So Provably is building verifiable analytics on private data. Today with me, I am joined here with Emanuele, who's CTO of Provably, and Shyam, CEO of Provably. They're both co-founders. We also have co-host Ming, who's Chief Research Scientist at ZKM. So very excited to have both of you here today. I'm wondering if you can first start off with your story on how you got involved in the ZK and Web3 spaces.
Right.
Go ahead, Emmanuel.
I can lead off. So I am a mathematician by training and by education. So, I did all the various academic titles, courses, etc. And then I spent a lot of years in industrial research and development, working a lot of times on algorithms from machine learning to cryptography to distributed systems. And circa in 2016-17, I got into building peer-to-peer markets, working with digital assets, and got a lot into cryptography, especially zero knowledge and etc. And that's where basically my Web3 journey started.
Cool. And I can share. So I guess I was around 2015, found crypto, fell down the rabbit hole, bought some tokens and stuff, read like 100 papers as the ICO boom happened. But the professional journey or the career journey probably started about 2018. I was at the time building, I was at IBM in the UK, and I was leading a program to build connected and electric vehicles. And I saw firsthand that as these smart products are emerging and they're getting autonomous over time, they're actually generating a lot of data assets. And now it's not just about one organization making sense of this data. There's a lot of collaboration over private data happening. This is kind of when it became apparent that you need new ways that basically almost all around us, new types of assets were being made. In this case, it was data assets, and you need ways to trade them. You need a way to compute over them. You need to be able to kind of create a collective intelligence, if you like. And I was looking for solutions around that, and I was lucky to find Emanuele, who was at IBM Research. And we had an opportunity to collaborate and look into the future. And then at some point, it became obvious that we need to take the plunge and actually, build some of this stuff ourselves. Now that we can see into the future, we need to build it, and that's what brought us both full time into crypto.
Yeah, great. And it's very good to see your kind of progression into what you're building today with Provably. So Emanuele, you started off with first going into ML and then becoming more going deeper into cryptography. And Shyam, I like the term that you use with creating a collective intelligence. Just wanted to kind of go off into that direction and ask you guys about also what inspired the vision behind Provably. If you could go more into the idea of this collective intelligence, and if you could also speak a bit more about how Provably fits into the broader ZK landscape and how you see as the broad long-term vision for ZK.
Yeah, actually I'm going to start from 1992 and Bill Clinton. So in that campaign, one of the messages was, it's the economy stupid. And all these years in which I worked with algorithms, etc., it can actually be summarized to it's the data stupid. Because basically, in all the projects that I did and where Shyam and I met, it was always, we were designing the most amazing maths, but we were struggling so much to get the data, to make it work, to make this idea of collective intelligence actually run. And we actually understood at the point when we met that we were trying to convince people and partners and customers, etc., to share data, but it wasn't working out. Nobody wanted to share data, despite having legal contracts in place, etc., etc. That was always the bottleneck. And when we left basically our corporation jobs, we started to think about the idea of monetization, etc., etc. And all the time, basically, we are converging to this idea. We need to try to find some ways of building insights from private data, regardless if they are encrypted or not. That was the thoughts at the time. And that's where Provably comes from. Basically, the idea that you don't need to share data anymore. You can monetize data, but they can remain private. And we need to build the tools and the protocols and the platforms to create those insights from people giving access, sorry, not giving access, from actors in the system, allowing insights into those private data.
And just exactly. So it, I guess, as you know, we're kind of in this world where most of the analytics was being done by the entity creating the data. You know, that's where we come from. So people that were harvesting, collecting the data, hoarding it, they were trying to make sense of it. But now it's kind of overflowing. There's so much that other people need to contribute to making sense of it. You know, so if you make a pretty complex product, no one person is building it all together. You know, you're usually getting a supplier to help you. You're getting another software provider to help you. And then in the end, you need them to also add value to the data that you've created. So, you know, the big thing is we're used to kind of operating in silos, but actually the more networked the world is becoming, the more collaborative we're becoming. And therefore, you know, enterprises used to operate on their own, or businesses used to operate on their own, but they really want to join forces and collaborate. And this is kind of, you know, now coming a little bit to your question and provably, it became apparent that we have to be able to do this on a pretty large scale, you know, first between a few trusted parties, like one company to another. And then over time, this goes from being, you know, two nodes collaborating to multiple nodes and then going from there. And the big thing is it needs to work on big data, right? It's not just now if you take you know, ZK and where crypto is, I think we're collaborating over blockchain data. That's like one category, but we think there's a need for collaborating over lots of different data sets and pretty big data. And yeah, so now maybe provably, although that was the idea that brought us into the space, you know, provably is a ZK for big data, ZK analytics project, and it really started off with the cryptography, and then we realized where we can apply it. You know, maybe Emanuele, you want to talk about the idea of, you know, we started off with the cryptographic protocol, and then it needed to be applied somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there has been a trend, especially in Web3, where companies, startup, many times start with a very big vision, and then they start to build around that. So they build the tools for that vision. So it's true that Shyam and myself, but also others in the team, have had for many years the idea of a vision, of what to do, etc., etc. But it never really crystallized completely. So with Provably, the first idea was, let's try to build a screwdriver. So a screwdriver as a zero-knowledge tool for big data and etc. And let's see how it is received and perceived from the market and from the people that take us on this journey. And that has helped us a lot in all these months to basically understand the vision that can be built around this screwdriver, that is the first Provably product, and what to do with it. And very soon, actually, we are coming up basically with this idea of the data collections, data ecosystems, a sort of collaborative universe for the data sphere, where AI agents and users on the platform can discover data, gain insight, etc., all the time preserving privacy.
Yeah, thanks so much. And I really like the kind of analogy that you used, Emanuele, of what's starting first off with the screwdriver to build around your grand vision, something that's small but an extremely useful tool that everyone can use, and just going and branching out from there, and testing out in the markets, getting feedback on it, and then building out more of it. So I really do like that approach of building around your grand vision. And just going off of more into what you both were speaking about like most of the analytics being done is by the holders and how we're currently operating in these very siloed systems. I'm wondering if you could both speak more about the kind of status quo that we are here today with data management regarding its collection, regarding its privacy, and then you both also talked about its monetization today. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about its current gaps and maybe some challenges with some existing solutions that are trying to address this.
Right. So I think it's actually interesting to see how it happens in Web 2. And I'm going to give you an example. So, and this has been a very instructive chat that we had with a couple of companies. So let's assume that you use one of the biggest, call it data collaboration tools that exist out there. And it's a data platform tool that allows you to, for example, for myself and Ming, to basically do some analytics together. So what I do, basically myself and Ming buy that product, and then I mask some of the data in a database, and Ming can run queries on the rows and columns that are on the clear. On the top of that, my company, a Ming company, write a very dense, complicated legal contract that basically protects us in case of data leaks, data breaches, in case that Ming or myself decide to not observe the data IT boundaries that we have set up. But at the end of the day, so Ming is accessing all the data that I unmask. He can see them, he can copy them, etc., etc. There are, let's call them less mature products that use advanced cryptography, but it's very, at the moment still, it's hard to scale and it's not very well performant. It requires advanced encryption, etc., etc. So, summarizing very quickly, the state of the art of data management and data and analytics collaboration at the moment is still probably at a phase in which collaborating on private data, it's still clunky, complicated, not performant.
Yeah, and just for me to add, that process that Emanuele described, it takes time, right? Someone you have to agree these contracts. That's like one problem. And then you have to prepare the data. You need to anonymize it, copy it into maybe a clean room, or even if you're using FHE and encryption, you have to spend time to encrypt it, and then the other person has to write the application. So these are great for like one-off heavy-duty activities. But if you want to do it on kind of like on a continuous basis, on a regular basis, it doesn't really scale, right? So you really want a way in which preparing your data, actually you're not even preparing it. It's just like good to go. It's live data, and you can actually collaborate not in just one way, but many different ways. So that's the world that we want to go to, where going away from like one-off big effort collaborations between trusted parties to actually collaborating with trustless partners very fast in a scalable, efficient way, in a kind of a seamless way. And then the last thing there is, how do you make that transition without like getting people to learn lots of new stuff, right? So that's really tricky because everybody's used to kind of the traditional Web 2 stack, or they know high-level programming languages. They need to be able to use it. That's where the millions of developers are. So how can we give them really advanced stuff, but without having to, learn new concepts and like put barriers in there? That's something that we believe that we're solving with Provably as well.
Yeah, and I just wanted to go more into that with how do you get to transition these people who may not be Web3 native or may not have all the like say technical knowledge that's typically needed without having to learn new things, without having to go through that learning curve. I'm wondering if you could speak more about the barriers within the developer community and also just user adoption regarding different ZK applications and how Provably kind of addresses it in this way. So I want you guys to mention about some opportunities for non-native audiences. So Shyam, you mentioned how we can get people from Web 2 onboarded onto Web 3. And I'm wondering how you can speak about how Provably and also just the broad ZK can appeal to those also non-native audiences and some of those barriers of adoption to those groups.
Sure. So just to describe Provably, we deliver it on a container, so you can deploy it on any environment, on any cloud, and then you integrate it using APIs. So that's two. Like those are the two most common ways. And then the big one, the third one, which is really important, is in our case, you only need to know SQL to run zero-knowledge queries, right? And this means that there's SQL is kind of the number one language for databases and data science, and therefore there's like nearly 7 million developers that you can address. Now, I think maybe Ming and Emanuele can go into the mechanics, but just for me to set the scene a little bit, ZK largely, there's a joke that maybe only 200. Sorry, Alice, I think when you go on the keyboard, I can hear it.
Oh, my apologies for that.
Sorry.
All right, there we go. Yep.
In ZK, just going back to, in terms of using ZK and mapping this to why SQL is really important, there's circuits, and then there's like general purpose proof frameworks. And, there's a joke that I heard in another podcast that there's maybe 200 people in the world who've actually built circuits. That's how manual and knowledge intensive that capability, building zero knowledge circuits is. Now we're at this era where general purpose proof frameworks allow you to write in a high level language, right? So if you go to Starkware or if you go to ZK Sync and so on, or SP1 and so on, they're all allowing you to write zero knowledge applications using some high level language. Now, so how are we different to them? The thing is, with those frameworks, the developer still needs to understand the underlying infrastructure, underlying protocol, because they need to write their application in a very optimal way, right? So it's not just I can use Rust or I can use TypeScript. I need to know if what I'm writing is optimized or not. And there's a lot of time spent in this improving this. That is a major barrier to writing ZK apps, basically. And our goal with Provably was, how can any one of these 7 million developers who know SQL just run SQL queries using Provably, and we've already pre-optimized it for them. And that would, maybe Emanuele, you want to add to that progression?
Yeah. So many years ago, I was asked to start one of the first automated marketing and analytics department in one of the jobs that I had. And I remember interacting a lot with the marketing and business intelligence people. Like Shyam talks about the developers, but the reality is that when we started Provably, we actually wanted to replicate that experience. So if you are, without trivializing it, so if you are a marketing person or a BI person in a company, you don't necessarily, actually, you don't know the algorithms. You don't know even, in our case, you don't need to know the type of privacy that is applied to a database. The only thing that you want to do is launch a SQL query and get a response back, and you're going to launch hundreds of them per day that then you collate into some BI graphs, that then you bring as a proof of your marketing campaigns, etc., for strategic ideas. So the idea of Probably was actually, when we started, and still is actually that. So to make it so easy that people that are not technical, that have other jobs and other scopes, can actually use it just by writing a SQL query.
Yeah, great. And it's pretty amazing that you only needed SQL to write these kind of ZK queries, and pretty incredible to think about how far we've come from, like what you said, Shyam, like only 200 people in the world, around that number, know how to build circuits, but how far we've come from moving up those abstraction layers, and now we can even generate proofs and write those proofs in higher level languages, which is something that we couldn't really imagine before. So really incredible to think of how far we've come in terms of optimizing for that developer experience. Just going into that, I'm wondering if you both could provide a walkthrough of a typical user journey on Provably. So yeah, I'm aware on a higher level outlook, it involves connecting to a data source and then requesting proofs, running that verifiable SQL query, and then before you're able to verify that proof. But I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more about that typical user pipeline.
Yeah. In mid-October, we're releasing Provably, it's 1.3. And in the user experience is that it's intended for the data owner and the insight seeker, right? So if I'm a data owner, I'm able to log in and connect my database to Provably. And then I curate the data that I want to make available. I make collections. We call these collections. And you curate from the database, what do you want to make available to another party? And by the way, it doesn't have to be just a database. Eventually, it could even be like an L2 or anyone having some private data in a tabular format. So the database, the data owner curates that, and then they choose who's allowed to run some analytics on it. It can be selected parties, like this is like restricted. It can be other developers or other app developers. You can name them, email them, and then they get access. Or it could also, they could make it available for public querying, which means it's listed for insight seekers to find. And then on the insight seeker side, we give them a page where basically they can explore all the data sets. And the really cool thing that we're working on, or they find the relevant data set, and then they can run their query straight away. And we're making it in a way that you could even potentially type in natural language, and then it'll be able to find the relevant data set for you and find the relevant, give you the right answer, right? And that means actually it's not just for, the main idea is that you run SQL queries, but imagine if anyone could come in, type in natural language, and find the query, find the answer that they're looking for. We're kind of in this world where you can get answers based on public data, but you can't really access any of the private insights out. So that's the value proposition for insight seekers, that here is a place where you can discover the world's hidden data. And then the people on the other side making it available, they make it available with privacy, and then potentially they can be receiving payments with crypto-based micropayments as well. And that's what we're shipping mid-October.
Yeah, great. And I do love the kind of overarching vision that you have of discovering the world's hidden data and extracting those insights from there, but in a way that users can still preserve privacy. I think that that's very, very, very powerful and will be used in a lot of different applications in the future. So very excited to see where you guys go. But I
Yeah,
also
and
wanted to.
Alice, I just want to add that we've only discovered this recently, and we're like very excited about it, right? So it goes back to Emanuele's analogy that we just started off playing with ZK in the different things that we were doing in the past. That we were just building ZK analytics, and that's all the idea was. But over time, once you do the abstraction, you start wondering where can you use it, and of course you use it for analytics for BI, and then you realize that actually anyone could use it. If it is with natural language or other AI agents could use it, and we're on this snowball, exciting journey of actually making ZK analytics, really usable in kind of mainstream environments. So very excited for that.
Yeah, very excited as well. And I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more about our current incentive models so just scoping out a bit, what do you see as the ideal incentive model between users and service providers in a given data ecosystem? And I'm wondering if you could also speak about what current solutions, the current ways that we address them around data ownership, around privacy, lack in that kind of relationship dynamic, and how Provably can come in.
Right. So, to be honest and to be completely fair, so we have just started on that journey. So we are starting to think now about pricing, incentives, etc., etc. But we are really at the very, very starting point. So we know that we need a pricing model, but also a way to incentivize, also give premiums, etc. We are also thinking about potentially a token for that, but it's really very, very early days at the moment. What we are very well aware is the fact that up to now, in other realities, when it comes to data and data monetization, it hasn't really worked very well.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think just in crypto everything is public, and then in Web 2 everything is like super private, locked up, right? And we are kind of working on shaping the middle space where there's this collaboration that can happen rather than having like these two extremes. And I think what we're fundamentally as selling data hasn't worked, and it's wrong. You're kind of exploiting people's data. You're harvesting as much as possible, and then you're trying to sell it. And the reality is that data by itself is also it's low value, right? Because and if you have it in an individual level, it's also not that valuable, and you can't use it when you need to. So there's all these problems. So it's about I guess we're at the stage where people are starting to there's two things. One, they're realizing ways in which that data can add value, so the value of data goes up, and we believe that ZK and crypto in general is bringing trust, right? So we do verifiable analytics. It tells you that you got some analytics from some party that you don't know, and it was done correctly and completely. And so that means that this is different. This analytics is valued differently to normal analytics, right? Which here we can prove that the analytics wasn't manipulated. And then you're starting to see decentralized databases where the data itself was not manipulated in any way. So the data is starting to, it has provenance, and this gives you like some degree of transparency. And then the last part is actually if you've involved the users and it comes from real people and they've actually consented and you're actually sharing some of the value back with them, now you've got data from real people, real devices. The whole thing was it wasn't manipulated in any way, and then your compute wasn't manipulated. Now you're in this era of trusted compute, and everything is kind of verifiable, and this actually becomes very valuable. And at that stage, if you are able to offer services based on that data, you may be able to earn something back. So as a data provider, I think the way we are thinking is super early, but it's likely that the pricing will go that the more you can demonstrate that you use ZK or you use verifiable or use trusted databases, and you involved the people that help you to make that data, which is basically the users, and you're giving something back. This is kind of when your data and what you offer is really valuable. So it's a progression towards having this kind of full trusted stack, and it also means that you have provenance. So let's say a lot of the insight seekers are AI. AI wants to explain and have some provenance over where it got certain answers from. And now with ZK and combination with other crypto techniques, we can demonstrate where it came from. And here, then we're going kind of up the value curve of the value of data and all the outputs that come from there. And this is like, all the attempts in crypto so far, and in general, even regulation has been forcing it, is you can download, you take GDPR, it says you can download copies of your data. It's yours. The problem is that it's still difficult to use it, right? You get a copy of your data from Facebook or Reddit or wherever. Now what do you do with it? You're kind of stuck. It's in an island. I think with the route that we're going, we want to explore how data that is held by other parties, they are slowly giving agency, giving it back to the users, because that allows you to get better pricing. And if you can share some of the rewards with the users, then it means that users are they know what data is available with different parties. They're potentially being paid for it, and then you're starting to, and then at that stage we can do a lot more with data portability as well. But this is a very early stage, and I think no one has really explored this idea of actually dealing with the so-called centralized parties, right? And this is so that's something, we're looking to explore more. And I think to gain adoption, that we're definitely working on some incentive models, token and non-token based, that allows more parties to come in and participate and make their data assets available for LLMs and other purposes.
But if I can add something as well, Alice, one of the things, aspects that we are starting to see as well is that actually it's not only about the data and the incentives around those only. We're actually starting to see actually that if I am an insight seeker and I run, for example, 100 of queries per day, and some of them are actually maybe templated, and you have to spend computation, whatever. So there is a price attached to all of that. Why cannot I monetize those as well? Because now I have insights that have been generated with a proof, and they can be very easily reused for another strategy, another business intelligence, another large language model.
Yeah, got it. And I think it's really great that we're in that stage where we're finally kind of dealing directly with these centralized entities, and now we're in that stage where we're slowly giving agency back to the users. I think that broad vision is something that everyone in Web3 in general should embrace. So really great to see you guys kind of taking actionable steps towards that vision. I'm wondering if we could talk a bit more about the topic of data ecosystems in general. So maybe some opportunities that you see for collaborative computing and the development of these interconnected data ecosystems. And I'm wondering how Provably really enables this beyond our current enterprise environments that are not trustless, that require these high levels of trust. Maybe you could also speak about some other systems or other kind of tech verticals in addition to Web3 that can be used to form these data ecosystems. You mentioned a bit about AI as well, but I'm interested to hear if there's any other sort of verticals that you see can be used to form these ideal ecosystems.
You go or I go?
You.
Right, so it's a very complex question. There is a very big trend that we have noticed happening, and it's actually has been happening for 2 years. So, for many years in the past, enterprise was bringing data and algorithms together. So you would have, the creation of infrastructure where data and analytics would sit in the same computational infrastructure to basically have amazing performances, scalability, etc. Because there has been this trend since I think the 2000 towards the 2020 with Web3 as well, of decentralizing data, putting data on different infrastructures, etc. We are seeing more and more now analytics living on one infrastructure and data living in another one. And that naturally brings then this idea of collaborative computing. Because the algos need access to the data need to be curated somehow by other algos, etc., etc. So that I think is one of the big opportunities, probably the biggest one. Irrespectively, of Web3, distributed finance, personal data, etc., etc., I think the one of the biggest opportunity that is happening out there is the fact that data and algorithms are moving far away again. And so they need mechanisms again to interact and to check for provenance and all of that. And also, a very important aspect, that is also happening because of all what we know. So GDPR and other various privacy regulations have also been shaping this regionalization of data, regionalization of algorithms, where are the data sitting, who can do what with those data, etc., etc. And that's happening more and more. So that's basically my take of what are the opportunities and the trends out there in terms of data and algorithmic ecosystems.
And just a few things to add. I think we've come from a world where ecosystems existed inside verticals. You go to the financial market, you go to the financial ecosystem, it exists there. You have open banking, and then you go to healthcare, it exists there. But it's kind of been trapped there as well. Now I think actually we just to explain, and I just remember that I have this book here with me. It's called Ecosystem Architecture. Okay, and pretty much everywhere it's about going beyond your little silo and your local market to being able to make sense of lots of different dynamic data sets relevant to something, right? It is so if you take individuals, but if you want someone to serve you in a personalized way, you don't just want to know their health and their wellness. You also want to know what are their other habits like, how active are they, where are they going, what environments they're in. Now these questions you can't find them inside one industry domain. It's kind of everywhere, right? You have to go into different walks of life to understand. Okay, someone else has been traveling to Singapore, so they've been exposed to these types of elements, and someone has been somewhere else, so they're spending so much over there, X, Y, Z. So actually, everything's the need really is to go almost crypto-like, where it's open and it's available, and how do you find it, and then how do you do analytics on that? So one of the ideas here is that I guess more than ecosystems. So in general, people want to collaborate, and a way in which we see near term to make it happen is we're exploring whether we can add more value to the search experience, right? So today there's so much tension about LLMs, like where did they get their data from? It was scraped off the net. It was scraped off someone else's website. They weren't, paid for it, and so on. And therefore, the LLMs are giving you answers sometimes that are 2 years old, because you didn't really, you can't access the latest data. You didn't do a data licensing deal with them. So here, by making Provably available as a middleware and making it so easy to be deployed, I think there's a big opportunity for data owners to almost create their own agents and make it available to answer questions on the net. So if you asked a question that said, in Singapore right now, what is the hotel occupancy? You don't need to, normally you would wait for a survey. You would wait for 1 month to find out this was the hotel occupancy, and so on. But imagine if you could get that answer straight away, right? Or how many people flew into Singapore yesterday? Or how many people went into hospital yesterday? And this is kind of where it's like a massive discovery problem, and then to answer questions in context, almost on the latest information. So this is where kind of everything collides to have all the information for you available at your fingertips. I mean, this is like wild stuff, because no one, we don't have the, no one has been able to do this because they haven't really solved the fairness problem of how do you get it without surveilling on people or hoarding information? How do you do it in a fair way? How do you do it in a private way? And then knowing that the answer you got was correct at the end, this verifiability. And I think that's kind of that's the phase that we're going into now, where if data becomes available, it's actually available to combine things from different places to answer something in context. I mean, that would be amazing if we have that. And I think this is kind of what we're exploring on our side.
Yeah, great. And I do like the kind of comparison that you made with going beyond that little silo that we're kind of all contained in, and the local market to make sense of data sets. And we can really see the proposition in having collaboration between these different ecosystems. And then also with the questions that you mentioned about, in addition to knowing about their habits, we also want to know how active they are. And those are also very important questions that we can't exactly find in siloed environments, but can only really address if we have these interconnected ecosystems. So really like that point that you mentioned. I'm wondering if we could speak a little bit more about the applications and use cases side. So I'm wondering if you could address about some other applications that Provably is targeting, besides, like, say, main target audience of blockchains that require verifiable computing. Maybe you could talk a bit about some use cases with media rights or confidential medical data, sensitive financial information, some other applications.
Yeah, maybe I can give you two. So one of the ones we're talking to are exploring in healthcare. We actually discovered that this was a pretty big problem. Is we're talking to an entity that builds healthcare data networks, and their challenge, and I remember this from my time in IBM as well, is that as you roll out and as health data becomes digitized, and you need to collaborate over it, as you go country to country, the biggest problem is that how do you very efficiently meet local regulatory requirements in terms of privacy? And if you use basic privacy, if you use like anonymization or pseudonymization, it's actually not easy. You can't meet those local regulatory requirements easily. Every country, it feels like we should be able to do more. So ZK or strong privacy techniques are amazing to build a platform or to build a solution that you can go globally very quickly and go to many countries and show them that you've actually built something and you're using something that really protects data, and protects privacy, or gives you all the privacy that you need, and therefore you're kind of like I think ZK is an amazing opportunity to over-engineer something, and yet meet the current regulations, which means you can scale faster. And in terms of healthcare, you're solving problems in that industry a lot more, where you're helping with drug discovery because they can understand how medicines are being used and how patients are reacting to it, or if there's an outbreak in a certain area, you know it very quickly, so that the supply chain can prepare to stockpile more medicines or something like that. And you're doing all of that without necessarily surveilling or going into people's personal data. You're not trying to centralize it in any way. The data remains wherever it is, but you've got these really important insights. So we're very excited about healthcare, and I know Emmanuel came across a study recently that said basically healthcare is like the number one place where that is perfect for ecosystems, because it's kind of it's in our survival need to really have that data and make sense of it. And then another one, maybe a little bit off topic, just going to ZK specifically. 2 years ago or last year, there was there was a lot of protests in Hollywood or in California about there were issues in Hollywood around or protests, if you like, of sorry, but I had a phone call and it kind of distracted me for a second. So last year there were protests in the US around the filmmakers. They were not getting, in some cases, they weren't getting the royalties that they were supposed to get, because some of them were on old contracts that were, they made shows in the 90s, let's say shows like Friends, and those shows were, once they went on to Netflix, and the royalties that accrued from them, they weren't given back to the old content creators because the contract was from the 90s. And that got resolved in the end, that they will, the contracts will be upgraded or updated, so that if Friends is shown on one of the newer streaming platforms, they would be, they would get their royalty payments. Now here the issue is that how do you know that, so at the end of last year, Netflix actually published their viewing data. And the thing is that some of these organizations, Spotify included, many of these players, they're self-calculating the royalties to be paid out. It happens with YouTube, it happens with Spotify, Netflix, and so on. And the issue here is that the person on the other side who's receiving that check, they're not able to understand whether that is the right amount or not. And we kind of have this on crypto as well, in the sense that just because you have millions of transactions on a blockchain, someone still has to roll it all up, agree how you calculate royalties. Like, you need to watch the show for 5 minutes, or you need to watch the show for 10 minutes, and then explain this is why I'm giving it to you. So it's kind of explaining your reason of why you're doing something. So ZK is amazing here, where if I'm YouTube or Spotify or Netflix, I don't have to reveal my customer data, but I can use ZK proofs to demonstrate that for this show, I included all the relevant data for the people that watch the show, and this is how I calculated the royalties, and therefore this is right. So it's kind of like proof of calculations on big data. And here the benefit is you don't need to do manual data audits. As a data owner, you're proving something and you're bringing trust to your brand. And likewise, it could be, if you're doing proof of solvency or proof of liabilities, it's somebody sitting outside, as we remember during the FTX time. How do you know your bank is solvent or your custodian is solvent? So sitting outside, you could run analytics on whoever your counterparty is and get the accurate answer back. So these are definitely the healthcare one. We're already talking to the AI one. Also, we're actively involved in. And then I think we will also do a lot more around databases as well. People building on databases want to prove things. This, I think, is a massive area for us.
Yeah, definitely. And really like that proof of calculation for big data, that kind of use case. Because, in many different industries, we have that problem of having a way to prove that data, but then at the same time, we want that transparency, but simultaneously trying to preserve user privacy. That comes off as a very big challenge for many different industries. So definitely see a big use case within that proof of calculation for that type of data. I'm wondering if you could also speak about some of the design considerations behind Provably. So I know that you guys implement or chose to implement bullet proofs for your proof systems, and you're also using Peterson commitments. So I'm wondering if you could speak more about the reasoning behind those design choices, maybe some benefits and trade-offs for them as well.
Right. So, thanks to Web3, zero-knowledge techniques have improved a lot in the last few years. I remember a few years back when actually the main comment was ZK will never scale, even to the benefits of blockchains or etc. So there was a lot of skepticism. So when we started this, we had two design principles, basically. The first design principle was the one that we have already explained a little bit, and it was we want to make these invisible and very simple. As I said, a business intelligence employee that just needs to do queries and get verification for those. So he doesn't need to see what's the protocol behind. And the other design principle was, even if it has to be invisible, it needs to be performant and it needs to be super secure. Because we are going to deal probably with a lot of Web2 customers, and they are extremely careful when it comes to security. And then a sort of appendix design principle that was this also needs to be very open, non-protected, non-covered by patents, etc., etc. Something that has been out there in the open that people don't know, they have developed for years, etc., etc. So the combination of all of those basically brought us to Bulletproof because it's not a general framework, because it's fast, because it uses inner product, because it has been around and tried and battle tested, and there is an extremely good open source repository that is very mature and that is very secure as well. And the same is for the others, so for Pedersen commitment and Berkeley trees as well. They have been around for a long time, used by many projects, etc. So instead of going for something more fancy like folding schemes, Nova, etc., that then got attacked a couple of years back, we basically decided to go down this very mature and robust route.
Yeah, awesome. Ming, would you like to add any thoughts to that or ask any other follow-up questions?
Yeah, yeah. Let me explain a little bit. I'm sorry. We have the very prepared questions, so it's different from our last time. And this platform is good that we can edit as we see fit. So I think Alice did a great job interviewing, explaining your technology. I wish we had more chance and more time to maybe kind of have a conversation deeper into these from a different point of view. For example, new zero knowledge proof paradigms could change the way that blockchain can be data intense as well, because blockchain used to be think of like very brittle, very non-scalable. But nowadays, with the new generation of ZKVM, like the ones that we're developing, with rollups and these new paradigms that the new generation of blockchains are developing, that we could maybe making data native on the blockchain. And of course, like AI also has a data problem because human behavior data, for example, the ones that, like you mentioned, in the medical industry, is very privacy sensitive, let's say. So there's a, like you explained really well, that that this data needs to be protected at all costs, but at the same time, it should also be accessible. And zero knowledge proof technologies are the best technology to deal with this kind of situation. But not only that, not just the medical data. I think all data that's generated by by everyone, that's being fed into all kinds of AI training models, is kind of opened up kind of scenario that all data is sensitive. So so maybe we can also delve into that. But we're at the beginning of a data explosion in terms of data is not just a afterthought or something behind the scene. It's kind of become the center of all applications since the AI new advancement. So how do we apply the zero knowledge proof technology and the decentralized development and application kind of paradigm that Web3 is exploring and pioneering and also promoting, which is completely different paradigm for development and also application than Web2. Now with AI in the scene, it becomes paramount that Web3 should replace Web2. It used to be that they can coexist, but for now, people kind of recognize that data is not only sensible, not only needs to be protected, but also valuable. So I think blockchain can address this, and this is what we here at ZKM is promoting, because for blockchains, there's economic incentives, which is the kind of design principle for all Web3 applications. But in Web2, it's basically non-existent. So how to incorporate this into every Web3 application that now also deals with data, I think it's also a challenge. And I really hope that we can kind of delve more into this new future with your product offering, of course, and also how we can together push this, not just your product, but this new narrative of more native, more private, and more valuable data. Let me just add this, and let's see if we can make this conversation like a more engaging. But I'm pretty sure Alice could make what we already discussed a good conversation podcast. But I think it's just me monologue, but I hope like in the future we can maybe design this a little bit better for more engaging conversation. But I'll make sure that this will be a great episode to introduce Provably to our audience. I'm actually really excited by the product that you're building.
Thanks.
Awesome. Yep. Thanks. Thanks, Ming, for the comments. And Alice, fantastic interview, and we really enjoyed it, and looking forward towards the finished product and having it out there for people to enjoy.
Yeah, thanks so much for both of you. And if you don't mind, I'd like to also ask like a closing question about your last closing thoughts, maybe some advice that you can give to the audience as well. But yeah, as what Ming said, this episode is more catered towards what you guys are doing at Provably, the value propositions, your long-term visions, and your general thoughts on the space. And perhaps in a part 2 follow-up episode with Ming, we could just have a more general discussion or go more into the technical specificities within some of the topics we discussed. But yeah, really looking forward to that. And yeah, thank you so much for joining. But just wondering if we could close off with that last question. So no worries about oh yeah, sorry about that. I think this last part will, like the part that we were just speaking about, we could cut it. And we can start just from here about that closing question. So I'm wondering for you both, Emanuele and Shyam, if you could talk a bit more about some of your last thoughts just before we close this session. Any closing thoughts you have, advice to the audience, just any last insights.
Yeah, go ahead, Manu. Go
ahead. I think so. My closing thought is that I'm very optimistic and hopeful. I think we are just starting to unveil now really what are the potentials of the data sphere and actually what's going to happen and all the new products, technologies, solutions that can be created and the societal impacts that they have. So this is just at the beginning.
And I think on my side, I'm very excited, optimistic, and actually I believe that we are seeing a convergence in many levels, right? So it's crypto, AI, and data, and we are. I can see how it all kind of comes together. So we're using ZK to do analytics on data. We're solving or going towards this trust route where you can start to trust in all the computations, trust in the data, and then we're using crypto for the payment rails and maybe potentially a token to incentivize. And then through also the way we're exploring it is giving agency back to the users. So all these things that we in crypto for 10 years have been believing, and then through the bull market and the bear market, wondering what are we doing here? Should we believe? Now I actually can see the light that we should believe, because it's all kind of clashing and it's happening. And it's just that it didn't happen maybe how I thought it would happen 5 years ago. But it is happening now. And so that's what I'm really excited. And it's kind of where the curiosity is that, we're weaving the needle of combining these technologies to put it together to make a more fair and private future and kind of accelerating trust. So very excited for what's to come. And I think if you asked how, what is the advice? I would say that this is a moment, actually thanks to ZK, we can actually look at the big world off chain. For a long time we had to do everything on chain pre-ZK, I think. Now we can play with all these off chain technologies and make them better and add some crypto principles to them. This is like opening a whole universe. So on our side, we're looking at the data, but I think for others, they can look at anything else that they know really well. And so super excited about where we're headed, and also looking forward to 2025 as well. Lots of great things to come.
Yeah, super excited as well. And thank you so much again, Emanuele and Shyam, for joining. Really appreciate all the insights you've given.
Our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.